Accords. Let's bring in our US correspondent then, Mark Stone. He's in Washington. And Mark, we've heard from President-elect Trump. We haven't heard from the Biden administration yet. What are we to make of that?
Well, that's interesting in and of itself. The fact that Donald Trump has got in there first and is beginning to do what I think he will do repeatedly over the coming days and claim credit for what has happened here, for this potential ceasefire, which we expect to be announced from Doha in the coming minutes. A statement from President-elect Trump in the last 20 minutes, he says simply, we have a deal for the hostages in the Middle East. They will be released shortly. And then, as you say, a bit more detail from Donald Trump within the last few moments, saying that they will work with Israel and allies to make sure Gaza never becomes a terrorist safe haven. And then I think a very interesting point, which goes to the heart of why perhaps this deal has happened now. He says, Trump says, we will build upon and further expand the Abraham Accords. Now, the Abraham Accords was a remarkable deal done during the last Trump presidency, which saw normalization between Israel and some Gulf Arab nations. Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel would like to continue that. He would like to extend that. He would like to see normalization with places like Saudi Arabia, which would fundamentally reshape the region. And so I think one reason why this deal has happened now is because Netanyahu needs to keep Trump on his side. Netanyahu knows that Trump is the key to perhaps normalizing relations between Israel and places like Saudi Arabia. And so while Netanyahu did not need to dance to Joe Biden's tune, he does need to dance to Donald Trump's tune. And so he is doing just that by conceding this ceasefire now. That said, I think, as I say, Donald Trump and his team will and are already claiming credit for what has happened here. That's fair. They should be claiming some credit because they have been working hand in glove, remarkable, some might see it as, with the outgoing administration. Steve Witkoff is Donald Trump's Middle East envoy. He has been working with Brett McCurk, the outgoing envoy for Biden's administration. They've both been in Doha working to get this deal done. So Trump's team should claim credit. And Trump's unpredictability is part of that. No one quite knew what Trump meant when he said all hell will break loose if the hostages are not released by the 20th of January. That is Inauguration Day, the day he becomes president. No one knew what he meant. Was it an empty threat? Was he going to do something? Who knows? No one knew. But it's Trump. Maybe he could have done something. And so that, I think, focused minds everywhere, whether it be in Doha, a key American ally. Could Trump somehow change the relationship between America and Doha if they... Don't forget, Hamas has a presence in Doha. If they were not playing ball, Netanyahu, he knew that he needed to listen to Trump in a way that perhaps he thought he didn't need to listen to Biden. So those are, I think, some of the contours that explain why this deal has happened now, given that, as your previous contributor said, the deal is pretty much exactly the same deal that Biden put on the table back in May last year. The reason it didn't work then is because we were looking at a different picture then. Biden had not lost the election. The Middle East had not been reshaped in a way that it has been now. Look at how Iranian influence in the Middle East has been decimated in Syria, in Lebanon, in Gaza as well. So that the picture in the Middle East is different and the politics is different. And that, Saima, is why this deal has come now.
And Mark, as we are speaking, we are now getting pictures in from both Gaza and Tel Aviv, side by side, where people are out onto the streets, clearly tentatively celebrating the potential of a ceasefire deal. And it is 15 months of fighting that has seen no respite, of course, for the Gazans and for the families of those hostages taken on October the 7th. You have worked in the Middle East. You now report, of course, from the United States. This is a region that has suffered a lot, and amidst the politics and the fighting, it is the people of Israel and the Palestinians that now are hoping for this ceasefire deal to really come through for some respite.
Yes, but unfortunately, these final moments in these sorts of negotiations where wars are paused or brought to an end are, history shows, the most dangerous moments of all, because just in practical terms, the fact that the Supreme Court in Israel will not vote on this, will not look at this until the morning, means that there is still many hours ahead where militarily it may be seen by Israel to be smart to continue bombing, to take out other strategic points that they may want to in Gaza up until the point at which that ceasefire deal is formally reached. So a dangerous night ahead for the people on the left of your screen there, for sure, an agony for the people on the right, because those hostages will not come out of Gaza until the ceasefire is formally ratified, which the suggestion is that it won't be until tomorrow. And then, of course, if Israel does decide that it wants to carry out more bombing overnight, just to tie up loose ends, for want of a better phrase, then what will Hamas do in response to that? So these final moments are unbelievably fragile, and these are the moments where, frankly, everything could fall apart.
Yeah, and that is the strange and bewildering juxtaposition. As I said, tentative celebrations in Gaza and Tel Aviv tonight. And Mark, of course, in terms of this ceasefire deal, it's in 3 phases. So everything hanging on this going through tonight, but then, of course, for each phase to also be negotiated and completed successfully.
And each phase is dependent on the success of the one before it. So it is very fragile indeed. 16 days is, I think, the first point at which things will be looked at again to see how well it is going and how both sides are meeting their half of this deal. But of course, I think the first phase is clearly set out. But as you go into the second and third phase, it is much less clear how this will all work out. And remember, we talk about ceasefire. Ceasefires, another word for that is a pause in fighting. This is not, by any stretch, an end to the problem that is the Palestinian issue, as diplomats so often refer to it as. This is simply a pause in fighting to allow for hostages to get out, for humanitarian aid to get in, and for a stage-by-stage process that would perhaps lead to something more permanent. But 2-state solution, 1-state solution, the rebuilding of Gaza, all these key things, well, they are a long way off.
Mark, for now, thanks very much indeed. We have now had a tweet from Layla Moran, who is, of course, British politician of Palestinian heritage from the Liberal Democrats. She says, finally, ceasefire, so many feelings, still can't quite believe it. We'd been so close before, but also, why did it take so long? Thousands of innocent dead, so much devastation. Let's hope this lasts and the bombs don't start again. Layla Moran, of course, Liberal Democrat, politician of Palestinian heritage, Palestinian Christian, British politician, of course. Let's speak to Jasmine El Gamal, former Middle East advisor at the Pentagon. Good evening to you. I think Layla Moran's tweet there poses all the questions amidst the relief that so many people who are watching this region tonight will have too.
Absolutely, Saima. I mean, that is the question that everyone's asking. If this deal is so close to the deal that was announced by President Biden last year in May, why did it take so long to finally get the two parties to sign it? There's so much tragedy in that 8-month period, and there's so much anguish and anger over the fact that it's taken this long. But I know that people right now are trying to focus on the fact that it is going to be signed. Hopefully, the deal still has to be ratified by the Israeli cabinet on the Israeli side, but both parties have agreed provisionally to the deal. And now we're just going to wait for it to be ratified. And then, of course, the real challenge is going to be in the implementation of the deal, which, as you've been discussing, is going to be over 3 phases, with each one of them building on the previous one, and each phase more difficult and more complicated than the previous one. So it's a long and arduous road ahead for Israelis and for Palestinians, as I've been saying. And I don't want people to think that this is going to be easy, but at the very least, the signing of the deal, once it is signed finally, should be a huge relief to a population in Gaza and certainly in Israel and the hostage families that have been waiting for this moment for far too long.
Jasmine, bear with us. Of course, Jasmine Al-Gamal, former advisor to the Pentagon on the Middle East. We do have an update from the United States. Let's bring in our US correspondent, Mark Stone, again. Mark, what do you have for us?
A statement, a lengthy statement now from Donald Trump. Incidentally, we've yet to hear from the outgoing administration of President Biden. But let me read you the statement from President-elect Trump. He says this epic, capital letters, ceasefire agreement could only have happened as a result of our historic victory in November, as it signaled to the entire world that my administration would seek peace and negotiate deals to ensure the safety of all Americans and our allies. It goes on to say, I am thrilled American and Israeli hostages will be returning home and to be reunited with their families and loved ones. And it continues, with this deal in place, my national security team, through the efforts of Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, will continue to work closely with Israel and our allies to make sure Gaza never again becomes a terrorist safe haven. We will continue promoting peace through strength throughout the region as we build upon the momentum of this ceasefire to further expand the historic Abraham Accords. This is only the beginning of great things to come for America and the world. And he concludes by saying, we've achieved so much without even being in the White House. Just imagine all of the wonderful things that will happen when I return to the White House and my administration is fully confirmed so that they can secure more victories for the United States. So there we are, as predicted, Donald Trump claiming almost total credit for the ceasefire that is seemingly very, very close indeed. And he is saying that it is only because of his victory, of his team's work in trying to get a deal that this has happened. I think it is fair to say that that is a little bit rich. It is the Biden administration that has done an awful lot of work in the background for many, many months to try and secure a deal. It's also fair to say that they have failed hitherto to secure a deal until this moment, and clearly something has changed. And as I described earlier, part of that is undoubtedly the unpredictability and the fact that Donald Trump is about to become president again. So there's a lot going on in the background. Both sides, outgoing and incoming presidential administrations, should fairly claim credit for what is seemingly unfolding now in the Middle East.